Hello and welcome to our new podcast, Trauma, Drama, and Life, by myself, Ben Taylor, and my wife, Kayla Taylor. We're super excited to be here and be able to just talk with you guys. This is kind of like our first episode, kind of like introductory. We were commenting before we started this, like we didn't really know what we're doing, right?
No, yeah, it's just kind of like, well, we're just gonna see what happens.
We're just going to start and kind of see where it goes. Well, we've had a lot of people that have, expressed interest or have wanted to hear from Kayla or, have her interact on some lives and things like that. And sometimes it hasn't always worked out for us to do it. And sometimes time-wise, life-wise, drama-wise, trauma-wise, anything like that. We just haven't had the chance to. So we were going to try to do a podcast. The goal is that we're going to be launching this in September and doing one a week, right?
Yeah, I think we decided one a week.
Yeah. So one a week and just trying to share some insights, some learnings, some knowledge, some ideas, some topics, and, some things that we've been through to give you kind of a little bit of a, I guess like a glimpse into our lives and then what we go through.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyways, what?
I thought you were going to keep saying something, so
anyways, I mean, part of it too, I think probably people would want to know just a little bit about us as far as like how we met or, kind of how all this started.
Yeah. So we met when we were working for Chick-fil-A. I started working at Chick-fil-A when I was in high school and continued through college, and Ben started working there after college, and I actually trained him, and I had no interest in him at first.
Just love at first sight.
It was not. I thought he was cute, but he was also arrogant and very cocky, and I was like, yeah, no, this is not where I would like.
Yeah, I thought I knew everything.
Yeah, I mean, at that time you did.
And I got hired in as a manager, and so already I was like, oh, I know everything because I have to control and tell everybody what to do in the whole story.
Yeah. So anyways, through a series of events, we ended up connecting on a work level more, and I got to know him a little bit better, and I was like, okay, he's not he is very cocky and arrogant, but he wasn't as snooty as what I had thought. So anyways, so we ended up getting together. We started dating and then engaged, and then we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And once we got married, that's when things started changing, and our first year of marriage was not very great. And
we both normally described as being pretty awful.
Yeah, it's
just across the board.
Yeah, and I think looking back now, I think it definitely would have been awful, but now that we know you have that you are a narcissist or whatever, then I think that added to it, because he was never he never portrayed those types of things during our relationship, dating or engaged or anything. I think engaged a little bit, but I think that I just kind of shook it off as it's just stress of planning a wedding and going through life and all of that.
Wasn't it when we were engaged that I punched the outside of your mom's house?
Yeah,
kicked it
out of anger or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that because your mom came out and yelled at me.
Yeah.
But that was sometime during engagement.
Yeah.
So that was one of the red flags.
But I mean, my mom said something, but I was like, he's just really upset. We're just under a lot of stress or whatever. I just kind of played it off.
I don't remember what it was about.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
9 years ago.
10, because...
Yeah, because that was when we were engaged. So
because coming up this month in September is going to be
9 years.
9 years.
August, end of the month.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying this is getting released in September. We're
Oh,
recording
yeah,
it the week before. So in 11 days, it'll be our anniversary, which will be past once you hear this episode. So
yeah, we'll have
figure that one out.
9 years.
Yeah, maybe 9 years in August.
But yeah, so then during our honeymoon, that was kind of the first time that I actually was oh, this is weird, because I told him to put on sunblock and he didn't listen, And I was like, okay, well, like, and I mean, maybe I did say it maybe more like aggressively, I guess. I don't know. Like, looking back, maybe it was my tone, but it was also like, obviously, like, I can't make excuses for him because it's his narcissism. But, um, I like was like, this is why I told you, like, you should put on sunblock. And then, like, literally, he just, like, kind of, like, went into this, like, almost like rage of like, meh, meh, meh. Like, I don't even remember what all you said. I just remember that was like, that caused like very, like, a tense moment. And like the rest of our honeymoon was like slightly tense. And then
Mm. I remember it
it
was
just
very
like went down.
painful because of the sunburn. I mean, 9 years later, and I'm still learning to like listen. But yeah, I remember it was like very painful because of the sunburn, and like that affected a lot of things too. But yeah, I remember honeymoon being tense and not being as, I guess, like fulfilling as I thought it was going to be, or connected as what I thought it was going to be. But I think some of it, even like going way back, is like hard to remember anything sometimes, whether that's just from me compartmentalizing or forgetting.
Yeah. And I think, like there's sometimes that I like bring stuff up of like, you used to do this. And he was like, wow, like I was really awful.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of times that like I remember things that like you bring up something and it's something that I don't have any recollection of, and I'm like, I just have to like trust you that that's like what happened, because like I don't remember. Or like sometimes you'll bring something up and it'll like slowly put it together, like the pieces of like, oh yeah, like I remember doing that, or like, oh crap, like that was really awful.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, like trying to remember the past is probably one of the hardest things. I was talking the other day in therapy, like mentioning that like I need to sit down with you sometime and actually like have you help me like write out like a timeline
Hmm.
of everything since marriage, just because like I don't really remember it. I had somebody ask me a question the other day and I had to like literally sit down and like think through my life like backwards, trying to figure out like when like an event happens. So I was like, I have no clue.
Yeah. And it's just part of all the things that
Just kind
you've
of all like
struggled. Yeah.
blank. Yeah, but like memory is definitely like an issue sometimes of like trying to remember in general. But I mean that really kind of came to light. I don't even know what that was, like probably like 6 months ago or something like that. Whenever we had that conversation in the car one time, and then we came inside and then like I didn't remember, like that was like a really like big moment for me as far
Oh,
as
yeah.
like impacting. I don't remember what we were talking about. It was
We
like a
were
heavy
here.
conversation. It wasn't like a bad or like an argument, but it was a heavy conversation. And we walked in the garage and like stepped in the house. And I remember like Kayla asked me a question about it, kind of like a follow-up question, if I remember right. And I like gave her some like wimpy answer, and she kind of like caught on really quick of like, do you not remember like what we just talked about? And like it like freaked me out
I
because
think it was more 10 months ago because I feel like it was when we came back from a little bit after
mm,
I came back from our separation.
okay,
Because
yeah,
I think that's what, yeah, I think
because it was a little bit after that, because it was like a year ago now.
yeah,
But yeah,
because
so
that
like
hasn't been like, that it wasn't like recent, but
right.
it was in the last, I guess like 10 months. I think it was like last November or something like that.
So this is
Yeah.
where we need to write it on the timeline,
Yeah.
just to be able to make sense for ourselves, so we can make sense of trying to communicate and like help other people understand what's going on. But I remember like that moment was very like pivotal to me of like, oh crap, like I have no clue, and like it freaked me out. Like I remember like getting like a little choked up of like what the heck is like wrong with me, like
Yeah.
even more so because like walking 20 steps from the car inside the house, like I couldn't remember a single thing we talked about, and that was really like frightening for me, I think.
Yeah, and I remember like the look on your face, like you were like terrified, and I was just like, I think in one sense, like some of it has to do with like the trauma that you also went through with like previous like affair relationships,
Hmm.
which is weird, like to even say like, yeah, he has like residual trauma from like other women who he's cheated on me with, but at the same time, like I can't discount like how those relationships like impacted you in one sense because one, it helped you get on track of like healing, but it also one was like a really toxic, very toxic
Right. Very toxic
relationship.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean a lot of times I'll reference that, just like the girl with BPD or narcissistic traits, as far as like what I
Yeah.
got involved with, that kind of made me slightly aware of like, hey, like I'm actually exhibiting these same behaviors. Like, the stuff that I'm seeing is not being reflected back at me, but is actually being done to me. I think that was like definitely like a big aspect. Um, I think probably like I really had like two main thoughts, I guess, or like questions, I guess, like starting this off is like normally people want to know whenever they hear like, hey, like Ben's a diagnosed narcissist, like he's got these platforms, all this kind of stuff. And, there's a huge aspect where people look at my platform, they look at me and they're like, maybe my narcissist can do that, maybe my narcissist can
Mm-hmm.
change and stuff like that. And, a lot of times people, ask the question or different things like that. But, I think probably the biggest question people ask is, what did you do to make me change?
I didn't do anything. I tried. Like I think there was like a point to when I was like, if I change and do this, or if I do this, or if I say I'm leaving, or if I don't know. Like I think that I tried every single thing that I possibly could, and nothing that I did or nothing that I said um changed him. The only thing that I knew that I could do was just pray. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And there came to a point to when our relationship was nothing but arguing every single day, and it was not healthy. Like I would wake up feeling absolutely defeated. I would wake up feeling like I didn't want to talk to him or whatever. And it came to the point to when I actually like didn't I dreaded the time when he was going to come home. And so I was like, this isn't healthy. This is not what a marriage is. This isn't what I want my daughter to like know is what a marriage is. This isn't this isn't anything that like God has like for me. Like this isn't what God has set up for as a marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, this is like I can't do this. Like I'm done. Um
Yeah.
and that's when we decided to separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like mutual, but like also like it was more like on your lines of like I'm leaving, and at that point you'd taken a job and moved back down to South Carolina.
Well, I
You know.
was interviewing, yeah.
Right,
I
right.
hadn't like officially taken a job, but yeah,
Okay.
I was
But you got
interviewing.
through that whole process going that direction,
Yeah.
and that was kind of like the place. Yeah, I think a lot of times people want to try to hold on to that hope, or hold on to the aspect of like, oh, like you did something or you made him change, or they'll do that for me, they'll do that for Lee, as far as like, oh, like their wives are influential in them changing or something like that. And it's one of those things that really there wasn't, because there wasn't anything that you could do or say, because you tried everything. I mean, we by the time we'd been here, we'd already gone to had we already done two couples counseling or just one at the
Mm,
end before when you left? We'd done one, right? And then, well, we
we had
we were
done
gonna
one a
start doing a
while
little bit
back,
with that
but
one
then
one lady with like EMDR, but then we like split and did EMDR
yeah,
separate
yeah,
and all.
yeah.
Which that was kind of weird. You didn't really like EMDR that much, did you?
It wasn't like terrible, but it wasn't like my favorite.
Right.
Um, I think it helped a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then I guess probably like the other question that a lot of times people ask is, like either why did you come back, or like how did I get you to stay, or stuff like that, as far as like oh, well, he's still with his wife, or they're still together, that kind of thing too.
Um, Part of that is it had nothing to do like it. He didn't get me to stay like or anything like that. It was more
Because I tried right away, right? I think
yeah.
like speak on that, because I
It
right
was like
after
a
you
couple
left,
of
right?
yeah. So once I left, like we were talking and stuff because obviously we have a daughter and I wasn't going to just not let him see her. So we were still talking and like a little bit to allow him to be able to talk to her, see her, FaceTime her, or even make plans to where he had her for a weekend or a couple weekends when I was gone. Um, and it was, I think I'd only been gone for a week and a half maybe. And he was like, I think you should come home. And I was like, what? And he was like, I think you should come home. Like, I'll do X, Y, and Z or whatever. And I'm like I'm just gonna have to really like think and pray about that. Like in my mind, like I was already like I was obviously like happy because obviously your relationship to work. You want them to actually change. But at the same time, I had to look at it from a viewpoint of he said that he's going to change so many times, and he says that he's going to do X, Y, and Z so many times, and he's only half-heartedly done them or not at all. And at this point, we had gotten at this point to the half-hearted. It wasn't. It was more like okay, I'm willing because I know that this is who I am, but I still kind of want like some of these things that I want, versus being all in and actually like making the change and everything. And so I was like, I'm just gonna like think about it. But of course I was like super happy because I was like, oh, he actually wants to change. And then there was just something.
At that point I was still like talking to someone.
Yeah, and I knew that, and I was like, yeah, this isn't. I was like, okay, well then you just can't talk to this person. And I think at that point you were like, oh, we're not talking like anymore. But like I knew this person, so I obviously went back and was like, hey, like, is this true? And then she was like, it's only like half true. And so I was like, yeah, like no. And so I just kind of just thought about it and I prayed about it, and I just did not feel comfortable. And I said, okay, I'm at least going to stay here a minimum of, I think it was like 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Because at this point, like I'd already started making plans with a bunch of my best friends of like July 4th and like all of this, and a birthday party that I'm normally not there for, one of my best friend's kids' birthdays. And I was like, I'm at least staying through like the first week of June or whatever. So I think that was going to be like 6 weeks or something. And he did not take that very well. He was like super frustrated, and he was like, I can't believe like this, all you wanted me to do is just like change, and this is what I'm willing to do. And I'm just like, okay, well, your reaction right now is not showing me any of that.
Yeah.
And so at that point I had just made the decision that like I most likely wasn't coming back. When I came back, it was just going to be to get my stuff and just be done. And so I guess it was 3 months in.
It's either 3 or 4.
3 or 4 months in.
That's why when you write down the timeline.
Yeah, like if I actually think back, like I can, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 3 months. And that he was like, hey, like that relationship is ended, like it's completely done. We haven't talked for X amount of time, and I'm really working extra hard in my therapy sessions. Like I would really like you to come back and us give it a fair go, because we haven't actually ever had that with me being like diagnosed and actually like working on my relationship with God and working on myself. And that was like the first time that I'd ever like kind of been like, oh, okay, like.
Was there an aspect you were like scared of, like, is he just trying to do this again?
Yeah, and I think part of it was, there was like that aspect of like, is this like true or what? But then he started like asking questions that like he never had asked in the past, like, how was your day? And like actually genuinely caring, because it wasn't just like, if I said good, he normally would be like, okay, and then talk about his day. Whereas I would say good, and then he would ask like, oh, well, what did you guys do today? Like, how is Sophia? Like, just different things like that. And I was like,
trying to invest more.
Yeah. And I was like, this is a little weird. Like, this hasn't happened since like we were dating. So I'm like, what's going on? And so it kind of just made me like more in tuned. And then he was like, I'm willing to go to couples therapy and all of that. And so I was like, okay. I was like, well, in my mind, I didn't tell him like a timeline, but in my mind I'd already set up like a timeline, and I'd already set up boundaries, because at this point I'd already started healing.
And by this point, I guess I'd been in therapy for 6 months? Like, if you go like a year ago, August was been like 6 months.
Yeah, because you started February of last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, So yeah, so I was like, okay, I mean, at this point, I was gonna need to come back and get stuff anyways because we separated over the summer. So all I had was summer clothes. And so I was like, either way, I'm gonna have to go back and get fall clothes. So this is just, in my mind, I was thinking, I'll give it a month and let's see like how it goes. And at that month, I'll reassess. And if things have not gotten better, then that automatically tells me like I'm done. And if they have gotten better, then I'll stay another month and see. Because obviously, like,
So you reassess like monthly now?
It's not monthly, but I do reassess every once in a while.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of one of those things that I was like, if he's truly changing, it's going to be a consistent change and it's not going to be after a month because, you can only fake it for so long. Like, after a month, I'm going to be able to tell these things or be able to figure something out or whatever. And so at the end of the day, like,
I think you probably knew or thought at that point you could tell like if my heart was in it because of just the past like 8 years of having affairs and noticing like when my heart hasn't been in the majority of the relationship either.
Yeah.
Or like when I haven't been like a heart might be misleading of like where I haven't been like actually trying or like putting in actual behavior differences effort.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So got back and that's kind of that's when I started noticing a huge difference. Like it was kind of weird and I was very like not standoffish. I was just very hesitant.
You're very cautious.
And cautious. Even probably like the first 6 months back. Because I feel like there was like a turning point for me like last December. I feel like I started like becoming more comfortable of like opening up and like telling you like how I feel without having that fear of, is this going to end very badly or is this going to end in like you like getting mad at me for saying something that is bothering me. Because he was still working on having to be able to understand my emotions and understanding like what I need and hearing like how things that you have done has hurt me because you just kind of want to just like dismiss that, but then in that moment it's like now that you're changing, like you have to like sit in that with me and like
I just want to move past it,
right? Because that brought back like shame and guilt and
like sitting in the moment like always sucks. I mean, it still sucks. So it's not like it's any better, but like being able,
it's just a little bit easier.
I guess like being able to like work through and like practice more of like sitting in it. I think that's helped. I guess a lot of times I view it as like going to the gym and like building up reps of it's like slightly easier now to handle, picking up the, 50-pound weight of shame, where before like the 5-ounce weight of shame felt, like 1,000 pounds, so like slowly being able to embrace or kind of look through different aspects and attributes and behaviors that I've exemplified that are not necessarily easier to digest, but easier to not like throw me back into that place of shame where then the next, action is to avoid or blame or rage or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, sweet. It's been like 23 minutes. So, well, hopefully, I mean, we have no clue what we're doing. We're just coming on here and talking. So we'd love to be able to get feedback from you guys. Feel free to rate the podcast. If there's a way on the podcast to shoot us a message or, message me on Instagram or anything like that of like what you guys would like to hear, questions you guys have, we'll definitely be able to answer those and kind of continue moving forward. And we'll get more scripted out, but we just want to kind of introduce a little bit, and probably the first couple episodes are going to be us trying to share some of our story and different things that have happened in our crazy life.
Yeah. And that's why we named it Trauma, Drama, and Life. So it's not just like specifically to like our, our history of, him being a recovering narcissist and things like that. But it can also be like parenting or anything. Yeah. So
kind of like very broad, because I think a lot of times it's easy for people to think like, oh, like that's narcissist and that's like it, he's just that. And, there's other aspects of life that, we both engage in that, we don't talk about or we haven't like opened up on any like social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
but anyways, Cool. Thank you guys for listening so much. Really do appreciate it. And stay tuned for the next episode of Trauma, Drama, and Life.
Yep. See you guys.